Hello there, my friend. How are you today? It's good to see you once more. Oh, it has been a while. Yes, indeed. And your timing is impeccable, my friend. I do have some things to show you. Yes. These artifacts I will show you in just a moment. They are belongings. If you've heard the tales of one Jasper Gray, yes? Yes, the infamous, or famous, depending on your perception, the Castor, yes, from that one school to the south. Southwest? Yes. Well, let's just say the stories, some of them are real, they are true. There's always a bit of truth to every great story, correct? Now, let's see. Yes, I believe we have everything here, but there are rumors there are some other items out in the world. Who knows where they are? And they could be quite dangerous if he had his hands on them. But let's take a look here. Yes, indeed. A much closer look. Alright, so all the role-playing aside, indeed this is a hand that I use to portray the more demonic side of the character. Now, this is, he has a few different forms throughout the story. He has a normal form. This is a sort of half-corrupted form, correct? Where he is still human, but the darker side of his power is starting to infiltrate him. It's starting to take over. So only the one side, right? And we'll see a bit more of that here in a moment. So this hand is quite monstrous, as you can see. Wires wrapped all around it. These little red wires here. What I did to create these sort of muscle, sinewy strands, right, is I took some floral wire, and I took each wire and I twisted them together to create these thicker ropes. And when they were twisted together, I had them tied between two chairs, very taut, right? And I then coated them with some glue. I let that sit, and it hardened a little bit, made it easier to mold, and it made it a bit stiffer. Then I covered it with some red paint. Of course, I then hit it with some spots of some dark, some black paint to kind of give it an intermittent sort of shadowy, fleshy look, almost like I believe Carnage, in the typical DC, the Marvel comics, has a black and red effect. So that's something I was kind of going for. But I chopped up a bunch of dowels and put little hinges between each finger bone. And then on each one there's a ring, a sort of eye screw to help guide the wire down each finger. These are simple little hinges. I just took an old work glove and used that as the base. Inside here, I wrapped the wire around some washers. So I created basically buttons to press my fingertips down on. These are some old belts that I have that go through the wood, like so, and sort of help tighten down. And let's see, let's kind of flip this guy over, and this is where the true mechanism of the hand comes in. So each area here I have small springs that are just simply screwed into the wood. So when I bend, these will naturally just bounce them back. Same here, I tried to make this bendable, so not only does the fingers bend, but the wrist can bend as well. The only issue currently, in this current form that I have, and this was an issue at the convention, 2 days ago? I brought this to a recent local convention, is that the thumb is a bit seized up. The thumb is a bit busted right here, so I'm going to have to replace this base bone. It's a bit split right there at the screw. That, combined with the improper wire length, I'm going to have to redo this whole little unit here. So, shorten the wire length, replace this little piece, and I should have a operational thumb. Other than that, it works pretty well. So let's do a quick demonstration. If I can slip this glove on. Yes, indeed. Like so. I have to replace a bit of that wire as well. I mean, this is something that was sitting in my storage bin for about 2 years, and I pulled it out literally the night before con and did some last minute tuning, and I think it still worked pretty well. Let me actually try to bend the wrist joint. I haven't tried bending the wrist joint in a long time. So what I need to do for that is I need to anchor both of these. There we go. Alright, that works. And I do plan on making a second one of these. Perhaps with the springs integrated, and I have a project to showcase that later. But I was able to put the springs inside the actual dowels. That way they're not so exposed, and it's a bit smoothed out. But I'm going to build that later for a separate project. That'll be his more fully corrupted sort of demonic form. But for the time being, this serves as a good prototype and learning experience. This was one of the early projects I worked on, as you can tell. A lot of duct tape here in the fingertips, but very functional. And a lot of people were like, oh, does it work? Does it work? Oh, yes, it works. It still works. You know, it's kind of like the Millennium Falcon. Looks a bit rough around the edges, but she's got it where it counts. Okay. So let's set this aside. And now this guy here. Not as extravagant of a piece, but I simply went to Party City, purchased a Phantom of the Opera mask, and chopped it in half. As you again see, this is on the left-hand side, so it still stays in form with his whole one side being corrupted. And I know that oftentimes that has been done in animes and other shows. Mind you, this whole character idea was spawned back in high school. I thought I was being new and creative, but hey, I stuck to my guns, and I'm still going to design the character as such. But these strands here, I would put this on, alright, and I would wrap these actually around my head. And when my hair is a bit longer, my hair is pretty short right now, when my hair is longer, I can actually tuck these into my hair and actually make it look like it's coming out of my head. So it adds another piece of realism. It adds more depth to the effect of this sort of corruption coming out of him. This particularly, I'm thinking back again, I was very inspired by the Hellsing Ultimate, what happened to Anderson, right? When he stuck that stake into his heart and became that monster. Can't quite remember the name off the top of my head, but that sort of, again, that sort of all the vines and muscle sort of thing is kind of what I was going for, but in a different way. Of course, I didn't even have that much wire to make a full effect like that, so there's a bit of restriction there on the material availability. But I still think it came out good. In fact, this had been sitting for so long, it had cracked in a few places. You can faintly see these lines here. It broke, but I was able to sort of glue and cement it back together. And that actually added to the sort of battle damaged and the scarring effect. So, I think it still looks pretty nice. it gives it a bit more realism. And I did actually punch holes and sew this together. This actually is not cosmetic, it is there. And actually this little tab that hangs inward, I'll often use, I'll kind of bite down on that to hold it towards me. That way it doesn't slide too much, because it does have a tendency to slide up on me. So that's a very crude countermeasure I put in. But that's basically it for the mask. There's not too much else to talk about there. And for painting it, since it was white, I just silver, then I took some acrylic and some black acrylic and water, and slowly just washed and darkened a few times over and over until I got that sort of darker, you can mostly see it around the edges here, a darker metal look. Because again, I don't want it being like too bright and chrome-like. Now, the final piece to really look at, because, you know, the boots and everything, they're the same, so I'm not going to show off the boots and stuff. But here's a quick preview. Actually, here, I can show this first. No, forget the preview thing. So, the jacket that I used in the Plague Trooper, correct? This jacket, I mentioned in the sort of the Plague Doctor Trooper video that I would show something like this. And well, here it is. So, inside the sleeve of this jacket, you can see, just faintly, all the holes. And in those, I have put these wires that wrap around the sleeve, so that it looks like, again, these things are coming out of him. So I wrap them out, and they kind of, you know, will spread out around the shoulder and flare out a little bit. I'll take some of the lower ones and wrap it around the big hand, so that, again, everything looks connected into one big thing. And here, real quick, small wires here, again made out of the floral wire, and they have these little loops at the end here. That way they'll catch on the fabric and not get pulled out. However, I can pull them out easily the other way, pull them all out, and use it for any other cosplay of a similar aesthetic. So, quite reusable, and these don't take up a lot of space. I just bundle them together and store them in a drawer. Not too complicated there. The final little piece would just be the same dress shirt that I used in the Chainsaw Man cosplay. You know, just for the blood effects and everything. And, yeah, this is very similar to what I'm wearing right now. Used a piece of cardstock to prevent bleeding between the two sides, and so that each side has a different pattern, you know, and they don't really interfere with one another. But that as well is worn underneath the jacket. As far as pants, you can wear some khakis of any, you know, style. I say any style, it's more of any color. However, I went with a brown pair of khakis, so like real khakis. But you could pull off a gray. That could work quite well. The boots, again, any kind of boots, whether they be combat, snow boots. I have a pair of these high, up to the knees, sort of riding boots that I use way back in my old Attack on Titan cosplays. So those work quite well. Again, they can be black, they can be brown. I went with the brown. Also because that particular pair I have are more weathered, so again, it kind of feeds into the whole, he's traveled around a lot, and he's seen some shit, you know what I mean? So, that will conclude the video for this particular character. Let me get the big hand out over there. There we go. So yes, this particular showcase is, that's basically it. And, yeah. I hope you found this perhaps inspirational. If you were struggling to make a giant mechanical hand or something like that, then yeah, feel free. This took me a while. This is actually the second one I made. The first one I had was a bit smaller palm, wider. It was real awkward with the angle of the fingers and everything. And plus it was on a big stick, so it stuck out like a sore thumb. It was not really integrated into my hand, per se. So even I had to learn quite a bit from that first one to make this. I really like this one. But even then, there was going to be a version 3, like I said earlier. There will be a version 3 in the future. So I hope you found this somewhat inspirational / educational. For those of you that tuned in, I thank you very much for your company, and I hope to see you around in a future video of this nature. Until next time, peace.